I think the shift in working patterns and openness to flexibility is huge. And I'd really challenge other business owners to think about how they can do that really well.
Hello, I'm Steph McGovern. Welcome to episode 4 of Adapting to the New Now, brought to you by NatWest. Now, this week, we're going to discuss confidence and the impact that this pandemic has had, not just on business owners, but on the whole workforce. So we're going to discuss what we can do for ourselves and each other to make sure that we can come back from this stronger and together. So I'm delighted to say we're joined this week by Ali Morn, who's founder of People Puzzles, which is an HR consultancy business. Thanks very much for joining us, Ali.
Thanks for having me.
So Ali, as someone who is constantly trying to help businesses deal with people, deal with their workforce, you must be seeing all of this chaos from so many different angles. What's it been like?
I think the thing that stands out for me is the massive range of responses. There's some businesses and some of our clients that are doing amazingly, and they've never grown so quickly and needed to hire as many people and cope with an uplift in business. And then we've got clients that are, of course, completely shut down because they run gyms or hotels or other hospitality leisure. So I think the range out there is absolutely enormous. So you just can't draw any generalizations. And it's about helping individual businesses through the thing that's in front of them at the moment.
And do you think then, from the work you're doing with different businesses, that everyone's facing the same challenges no matter what the business is?
Definitely not. We've got clients who are really taking advantage of the current situation. They're doing better. You know, they're sort of monthly income and revenue has doubled, and they are rapidly hiring and really optimistic about the future. And then we've got clients in hospitality and leisure who are still completely shut down and facing really difficult questions about how they can reopen really safely. And that's not just for their own employees, of course, but it's for the general public as well.
Yeah, and for those at the end where they're struggling and they're worried, and obviously, you know, a lot of companies have had to furlough staff. How are they feeling at the moment?
I mean, it's pretty hard, I think, even trying to put into words how those business owners are feeling. You know, some of them 20 years of business that they have put blood, sweat and tears into, and are in a situation where they don't know if they'll still be going in a couple of weeks. And I think that's probably the minority. But the furlough scheme has truly been a lifeline. I mean, at People Puzzles, we've used the furlough scheme. 6 of our team were furloughed. We've already brought 1 person back. But we definitely would have had to have made more redundancies. We have actually ended up making a couple, but we would have made more if it hadn't been for that. Yeah, that and the loan access that did take a little while maybe to get started, but money then did finally come through. That also has been a total lifesaver to businesses that otherwise would have gone under.
Yeah, and what are you saying to those businesses then?
I mean, one of the things we're encouraging our clients to do, and I think lots of businesses are doing this anyway, is really good scenario planning. So what happens if you go down by sort of 80% of your revenue, or what if it's only 50% of your revenue, or what if it's maybe only 20% off that you end up? If you're not doing that scenario planning, you can't take really good decisions month by month. And I think you end up in quite a panicky, responsive decision-making mental place, not knowing what to do next. Whereas actually, if you can clearly lay out a plan, you can put together some better thoughts and start building, I guess, from a different base than if every week you're having to react to different situations.
What about keeping your staff feeling like they're still part of the business, that they're still important to the business? Because I can imagine, and I've had this with friends who've been furloughed, you can feel suddenly like you're not needed, you're expendable, can't you? And so how, as a business owner, do you keep your team still feeling like, although they're not working now, they are really key to the team?
Yeah, I think this is one of those massive challenges for business owners at the moment, because actually, you know, for me personally, kind of distracted by scenario planning and budgets and what we're doing in specific difficult situations and how we're winning new business. And yet we've got to be better at communicating than we ever have been with people who are all over the place. And some of them are engaging with us through video calls and team meetings and reading the newsletters. But other ones aren't at all. And I'll give you just a really simple example. Part of furlough means no work at all. So we don't expect you to access your work emails, but then we're trying to write you a newsletter once a week to tell you what's going on in the business. But by the way, you're not checking your work emails. So does that mean we need to get everybody's personal emails and then start sending them updates, which they may or may not want, to their personal email? Even that gets complicated. So managers are trying to do their own job, or maybe they're furloughed themselves. And yet there's this job of keeping in touch individually with tens, hundreds of people who may or may not want to talk to us. So I think it's really tricky. And it's great to be doing things like YouTube videos. And I've recorded like weekly CEO sort of talking head type videos. And then that became fortnightly because I knew nobody was watching it every week. And I think what worked at the beginning of lockdown isn't working now because things get tired and old pretty quickly. So I think it's a massive challenge. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer or a quick fix. But I think that we've got to keep communicating, and we've got to think of different ways of communicating that meets people in different places in their lives. And then they can choose whether to engage with it or not.
Yeah. What is re-entry going to be like for people then?
Well, the groups of people I think it's going to be the hardest for is people with kids at home who don't have suitable childcare. So a couple of our team, for example, who are on furlough, we sort of said to them, look, we don't think we can bring you back till September. And they both said, brilliant. My kids are off school till September. I really can't cope with looking after my kids and trying to work. So I think if we were going to be really proactive thinking about re-entry, every business owner should be thinking about, like, what have people missed? How's the business changed in that time? We kind of need to do a re-induction. So how do we induct people when they start? Well, how do we re-induct people into what work is like now? And probably put together a program. And that might involve writing some stuff or recording some videos or holding some Zoom calls. But then there's going to be all the teething problems of people who don't have great laptops at home or, don't know how to connect, and they never took equipment home with them before. So it's going to take quite a lot of time and management and effort. And that's not even addressing the issues of people who are being called back into the office feeling safe or not safe.
Yeah, I know. The thing that interests me as well is, obviously, like for a long time being a business journalist, I've talked loads about flexible working. And that is not a new concept, but it's had to be adopted overnight by pretty much everyone. And unsurprisingly, some business owners, some employees are struggling with it.
Part of the challenge is that we're not asking people to work flexibly or work remotely in a normal environment. So we're expecting people to adjust to all sorts of different life changes all at the same time. And People Puzzles has been a completely remote, flexible setup since we started the business, so 10 years. And we have always got people together for key interactions and moments where we really need to communicate with everybody together. But everything else has been virtual and home-based. So actually this switch has been, I think, quite easy for People Puzzles. I think it's been much harder for those companies where it's been, 9 till 5:30, you sit in the office, you do your job, you go home, and actually kind of FaceTime and input has been more important than output or, flexibility for people. That is where the biggest shift is taking place. And actually, I was talking to one of my friends earlier today who works in a very traditional accountancy practice. And I said, like, what are your business doing? Because it's always been really important there to be in the office. He said, I think everyone will be able to work from home 2 days a week. I'm like, amazing.
Maybe this is like the push some businesses need to rethink how they work and be more flexible, because we all know being flexible in business is what actually helps you in times of uncertainty.
Absolutely. And how we get flex working really well for businesses that have never done it is one of the good challenges ahead. So if a business has been used to making sure people are sitting at their desk 7.5 hours a day, what they need to shift to is, what does a good day's work look like? What will I see from you by the end of the day that means I know you've done a great job? Has to move much more to sort of objectives based or number of calls answered, or, you know, whatever is relevant for that job, managers are going to have to really engage with expectations and then measuring whether people have achieved those and what that looks like. So I think that's a really good direction for all of our businesses to go in, but I think it's a new skill. So we've actually got to help a whole generation of managers get that new skill, which probably means a bit of training.
That's a really interesting thought, that idea of adapting your expectations of people to this new now, because obviously as well, everyone's having to communicate in a very different way. You know, you're at home, you're suddenly live on a Zoom with loads of other people, and how do you communicate well in that situation? As you say, you've got to deal with kids at home, pets at home, partners at home, or whatever else. And so do you think, therefore, if the onus is on business owners, is to just think about expecting maybe less or just something different of their employees?
I think the challenge is the cascade of information and the cascade of responsibilities through businesses. So as a business leader sitting here at home, the people I'm going to be talking to most often and the people I need to know what they're going to be delivering is my senior team. But I have to then trust them and have some checks and balances in place that each of them is doing that with the people that work for them, so that the organisation adds up to a whole that has got clarity and alignment and is going in the same direction. So that level of communication required from me is greater. But I can't tell everybody in my business of 75 people what they should be doing with their time, because that's just completely impossible. I think that is a good challenge, again, for business owners and business leaders who maybe can slip into problem solving themselves and micromanaging and undermining some of their managers. It has to shift. And the other problem I think that throws up is how we do our problem solving. And if you have a problem that comes up, you can just really quickly grab 5 people from different teams in the business and get them into a room and solve it. If everybody is working remotely and you have your systems sort of almost silos where people are working in their teams and they only talk to the people they're used to talking to, you've got to find different ways to solve those kinds of problems, because actually those cross teams within businesses are the things that make us more efficient and get things done better, quicker, leaner.
Yeah, there's so much pressure now on business owners, because obviously you've got your workforce who are looking to you for answers, and you might not have those answers because, quite frankly, they aren't really out there at the minute. So how, with all of that going on, do you stay focused as a business owner?
One of the things I've been reflecting on this week is that when you're working from home and you're not seeing people and you're not hearing tone of voice as much, it's easier to misunderstand people's sort of comments and feedback. And certainly I had to send quite a grovelling apology to a group of people in my business yesterday where I'd assumed something of them and tapped out my email response and basically said something sort of inflammatory and wrong. And I think that one of our values is around sort of learning and humility. And I think that comes reasonably easy to me, because I definitely don't think I know best all the time, because I don't. But coming from that place of we're working together to try and solve the problems that we've got, and nobody knows the future, it's even more a time of that collaboration being really important. About 10 years ago, I read an article on how Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz is a really good example of leadership, because she's saying to people, come and join me. You don't have everything that you need, but we can go and look for it together. And I'm not here giving you all the answers, but what I'm doing is saying, come on the journey, and together, let's look for the wizard who lives in the Emerald City, who's a complete fraud. No, not that bit, but the bit about gathering people together to go and solve their own problems. And I love that picture, because it means, as a business owner, I don't have to have all the answers. But what I have to do is to bring people together to solve them ourselves.
Yeah, I love the idea of you being Dorothy now in The Wizard of Oz.
I red slippers on right now, you just can't see them.
I love that thought. It's true though, isn't it? Because it is about understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, and then making sure you've got the people around you that have got the strengths you don't have. And what it feels like from everything you're saying as well is communication is absolutely the thread that holds everything together here in these times. Would you say that's fair? It is about, you've got to really nail your communication during all this.
I think it's communication, but mixed with optimism. So I've also been having conversation with other business owners about sort of how much you tell the team about what's completely going on. And I think you've got to find a balance, because what you don't want to do is one day say, everything's terrible and we've got no clue what we're doing. And then the next day you say, well, this one good thing happened. I'm really overjoyed about it and great things happening. And then the next day, you can't be like that as a leader. What you have to do is to hold a clear and calm, and I think optimistic and confident line. But you have to be wise and you have to be thoughtful about what you're saying and when and how, so that you're giving your team as much confidence as they can have in your ability to lead the business through this. Because at the end of the day, people, I think most people, they want to feel safe at work. And I mean safe by sort of having a job, number one. Then there's the safety around feeling I'm not going to get an infectious disease at work. And then they need to feel valued and that they can do a good job and that they can contribute to the whole. So our job as business owners is to take people on that journey and hold a good, confident, clear message, but not be unrealistic or fake about it.
Listen, I want to ask you a bit about what you've learned from all of this. What's been the key thing where you've thought, wow, I didn't know that before. That's definitely going to be something that makes a difference to me in the future.
So scenario planning for us has been really helpful. One of the things I've really learned by doing that is, so when we were doing our budgeting back in, it was probably April, I said, we've got no idea what's going to happen in May and no idea what's going to happen in June. So let's just do like really short-term stuff and let's do sort of a 3-month budget. And my business partner said, that's nonsense. We can make informed and intelligent guesses about what we think, and we can do 2 budgets so that we can really see what decisions we need to make now and that they are sensible and have the potential for a good long term. And she was completely right. And actually, I'm still hearing a lot of business owners saying, I can't budget for the rest of 2020, or I can't budget for the next 12 months. And I think that's wrong. If we don't do that, we're not setting ourselves up for a chance of taking advantage. And you can always change a budget, you can always change a scenario, but if you start with nothing, it gives you a very short-termist view, which I think was fine in sort of March when COVID all started here, but it's not fine now.
And what are your top tips then for business owners out there in terms of adapting to the new now?
I think the shift in working patterns and openness to flexibility is huge. And I'd really challenge other business owners to think about how they can do that really well. And a lot of research is coming out about making office places and gatherings of people to be about meaningful opportunities for communication, not just being in there by rote. I think there's a great opportunity around sales for loads of businesses. Like most businesses have relied on some element of face-to-face selling, particularly those selling sort of bigger value things. And this has really shown us that we can sell online. And then I think in terms of sort of personal leadership, we talked a bit about sort of resilience, but that collaboration and bringing people together to solve problems and making sure you find ways to connect with people in new and interesting and different ways. I think if we can get some of those things sorted out, we'll be in a good place to sort of weigh up like what's worked, what do we take forwards. If you think we've all started businesses, which is pretty hard work. So if we can do that, I think we can adapt to whatever's going on in the economy and out there. If we go in with sort of optimism and confidence and taking advice and support and being in peer groups with other business owners, I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, it's a really important point, isn't it? It's you. Business owners are used to taking risk and dealing with uncertainty. So that's some really good tips. I've got to ask you before I let you go, given you're sat next to the door of your house, how often has that door opened mid-meeting and your 3-year-old ran in?
Yeah, surprisingly often. Nursery actually restarted very recently and it was like life-changing. She does particularly love mummy and talking to whoever's in the camera. So she never just comes in, she always comes in, climbs on my lap and then starts talking to whoever is there.
Oh, do you know what? It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much, Ali. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Make sure you check out our other episodes in this series, Adapting to the New Now. We look at everything from effective marketing, planning for a successful 2020, and how to make sure you make the most of your business online. Thank you very much.